primary school and the GCSE exams, both of those, the results for those and the A levels are published on a government website. So it's possible to see how a school has done, how the children have done in the school, not identifying particular children, but to look at the school to see how they're doing. Another thing we have is Ofsted, which is an independent inspectorate. They go into schools and look at not just the quality of the education, but the safety, the behaviour, the overall governance and steering from the head teacher of the school, and they give the school a grading. Ofsted reports are useful, but they're definitely not the be all and end all. They do go out of date very quickly. Ofsted are only in for a couple of days, and they may not be back for a while. And indeed, there was a period when if you had the highest rating, then the government decided that you wouldn't be re-inspected. So you may look and find that somebody had an outstanding inspection back in 2008 and they've not been inspected again since. And now the government is 99% sure that a lot of those schools aren't going to be outstanding anymore, just because they're looking at different things when they do the inspections. So those schools are sort of busy being re-inspected. So don't lay too much value in the Ofsted reports, but they can be quite helpful. Then you can find admissions booklets giving you details about the size of the school, the catchment areas. Sometimes a school has a defined area. Sometimes it's just about how close you live to the school. But one thing to be aware of is that unlike lots of other countries, we do not have a system of, if you live in this area, you will go to this school. All of the schools will have what's called a planned admission number, which is a set number of children that they're allowed to admit into each year group. And when they reach that, it doesn't matter if you're living on the doorstep of the school, you will not get a place at that school. Your child would go onto the waiting list. They'd probably be at the top of the waiting list if you live very close, but they won't actually be given a space. And what you would be offered is a place at the next nearest school that does have some availability. So it's just something to look out for. It's great to look at all the performance side, but don't identify a school and go, okay, well, we're going to move into that area because we're going to go to that school, because that's not how it works. It's about having a space available. You can also find information on Find My Nearest, and also links. Sometimes there's links between primary schools and secondary schools and things like that that come into play when you're looking at schooling. Oh, okay, so we've got some sample reports here. So these are some of the bits of information that you can find on the schools. So this is the GCSEs actually looking here at the progress that a school's making, their gradings on things like their EBACs, which is a group of qualifications. So that's the maths, the English, the science, the humanities, the language, the standard, more academic subjects they are assessed. So that's just a quick glimpse at some of the types of reports you can see. So the different types of application that you can make. This is something that it's really important to get your head around when you're thinking about moving to the UK. So we have something called entry year. So entry year is the first year that a child starts at a particular phase of school. So in a primary school, that would be reception. So that's a 4 turning 5. That's the first year that children ever join that school. Sometimes there's a little division there, and we have something called junior schools, which starts for the children that are turning 7. And again, that's another entry point for the children that are joining that school, because it's the first time they'll ever be old enough to set foot into that physical building. And then secondary schools, again, moving into year 7, that's when the children are 11, turning 12. That is an entry year. That's when children will leave the primary school and then physically go to a new building for the next stage of their education. So those particular phase points have deadlines, and they are well in advance of when the child will start at that school. So for reception and for the junior school, applications have to be made by the 15th of January of the year before they start. And for secondary schools, it's the 31st of October of the year prior to joining. So that's quite a big thing in advance. You can still make an application if you miss that deadline, but what happens is the councils allocate the places to everybody that's made an on-time application, all the people that have met that deadline, before they then look at all of the late applications. So if you don't have a crystal ball and you don't know how far in advance you're moving, you can sometimes fall foul of that. At any other point, so if your child is joining a school, joining a year group where the children are already in that school, they've been there for a year or for 6 months or for 4 years or however long it happens to be, it's classified as an in-year application. And those can be made at any time. There aren't any fixed times that you can start at a school. So you can start on the first day of term, or you could start on the 15th, or you could start on the 27th. It really doesn't make any difference at all. You can start on a Monday, you can start on a Thursday. There really is no rule about what day you start. So when you're making an in-year application, then those are made a lot closer to when you actually physically arrive in the school and need the space. Thanks. So the timing of the applications. For the in-year applications, what normally happens is that you can't apply, and it does depend on where you're moving to in the UK. Each council will have their own little rules. So with the timing of the applications, you can't normally apply more than about 2 or 3 weeks before you need your child to start at the school place. And you will have to provide supporting documentation, and that will include a signed tenancy agreement usually. So what they're looking for, because the councils are processing the applications all the time as people are moving in, they're trying to be as fair as possible. So they won't allocate you something well in advance, because that would be unfair for people that move in between when you submit your form and when you actually need the place. And they want to know that you're actually there, which is why they're asking for the signed tenancy agreement. Then apart from that, there's not really any more documentation that you need to provide. Sometimes in the centre of London, they might ask for things like a bill or a council tax or something like that, but they are kind of the finer tweaky things that we can work around. You don't have to provide any evidence of immunisation. That's not a prerequisite to joining a school in the UK. And where do you make those applications? You've probably gathered by now that there is no straightforward, easy answer to anything to do with schooling. Realistically, the councils, so in the UK, it's divided up into different council areas, and the councils are responsible for the schools in those areas. So sometimes you apply to the council. In other instances, the council has said, do you know what, we don't want to be coordinating all of this. Each individual school can do their own. So you would apply to each individual school. So it's a messy situation, which is why it's so helpful, if I'm allowed to say so, to have some support from somebody like myself, because we know the system and we can make sure that you're not missing out on anything by sending forms to the wrong place and then wondering why you haven't had a reply at all. Okay, yeah, so we've got just a bit of an overview diagram there, showing you how the structure of the school system, yeah, and the different ages that are on the side there, showing you how old the children are. So as I said, it's all about the 1st of September through to the 31st of August being the dates that you need to know. Okay, costs that you need to be aware of. You probably are aware that most of the schools in the UK have school uniforms, and what tends to happen is the school jumper has a logo on it, and that you would have to buy either through the school or from a specialist supplier. But apart from that, in the state system, most of the uniform can be bought in any high street store or supermarket. So particularly, well, it seems to get earlier every year, usually around June time, the supermarkets are trying to encourage you to buy uniform for the September. not too sure what they think happens to our children, but my personal experience is that children grow between June and September. So you have to buy big to make sure that it's still going to fit in September. But it's readily available. It really is very, very easy to get hold of the uniform. And because there's so many places selling the standard grey trousers, there's, the prices are not too extortionate. If you're looking at private schools, then it's so that's the fee paying schools, then you're in a completely different realm, because often then they will specify everything that needs to be bought from particular suppliers, and the costs can be quite substantial. One thing that we don't usually have in the UK is any form of busing for picking children up to go to school. Within the state system, that's the government funded schools. What we're aiming for is for children to be able to walk to their local school. That's why you're applying to schools that live near to you, or cycle. So we don't have any school busing. School meals, most secondary schools, so that's the older age 11 and upwards pupils, most of those will have canteens on site that students can buy meals from if they want to, or they can take sandwiches or whatever food that they want to in from home. There aren't any facilities in our schools for people to, for students to reheat food. So if you take food in from home that needs to be warmed through, that you haven't got that facility in the state schools. In the primary schools, the first 3 years, so reception year 1, year 2, so this is from the age of 4 to the age of 7, the government funds a meal at lunchtime, so the children can choose to have a hot meal and you wouldn't have to pay for that. After that, you would have to pay for it as a parent, but costs tend to be relatively low, and to try and make it affordable and a good way of managing everybody's lifestyle. Okay, I think that's enough from me. So hopefully you're still awake and your heads aren't spinning too much, and I'm happy to answer some questions. I did see some popping up, but I didn't actually read the questions, so I don't know whether somebody can read those out for me if they were specifically for me.
There's just one question come from Depeche, it was just on school year, Debbie, so it's just they're asking school years of their children for.
Oh, okay, yeah, I can see that. So January 2014, they would be in year 3 at the moment, and January 2016 they would be in year 1.
Yeah.
Is there another question there or not? Was that the only one?
I was just replying to Depeche asking dates of birth, so.
Oh, okay,
that's all it was.
Okay, fair enough. See a little flurry of information there.
Nikki Forster asked, we arrived mid-February. Our daughter will be 11 on the 31st of August. What year will she go to?
So she's going to be 11 on the 31st of August next year, 2022. So she is going to be in year 6. She's going to be in the last year of primary school. So she's literally the last day of the year that would be in that year group. So if you're moving to the UK in February, you will be making a late application for a secondary school place. So you probably are going to need to do a lot of research to look at allocation information to try and work out which secondary schools that are good were still likely to have spaces available for you when you move here.
She said, my child is in primary school. Would I be required to bring any documentation over from her current school?
No, not if you're looking at the government funded schools. The application form is literally name, address, which schools do you want, does your child need any extra support, do they need any support with English? That's it, nothing else.
Kevin Wallace says, my son is in grade 3 in South Africa. When we move to the UK, would he be put into grade 3 in the UK?
It depends on his date of birth. I suspect if he's in grade 3 in South Africa, that's the equivalent of year 4 in the UK system, because in South Africa you go up to grade 12, we go up to year 13, so it's that whole one number higher thing. So I mean, if he wants to pop the date of birth in there and you can read that out for me, that would be really helpful.
I think Deepesh has a question. You can go ahead and ask it.
Hi, Debbie. You're speaking to the wife. It's Heshma.
Oh, hello, Heshma.
Debbie, I have 2 questions. The first one, my daughter, obviously we missed the applications for the October batch, right? So you were saying something about January 15th is the deadline for the next application for them to join. Is that correct?
Okay, so the January deadline is for the little children joining primary school. The October deadline is for the older children who are going to be joining secondary school. So there's just one deadline for each of the phases. It's just they're different. So if she's year 6 going into year 7, then that would have been the 31st of August.
Okay, no, she's going to be in year 3, as you said. She's 6 years.
Oh, so if she's going into year 3, then the deadlines do not apply. It's an in-year application.
Okay, so we can apply as soon as we get our tenancy now, and then
exactly
from there. Okay,
exactly.
Thanks. And another question, sorry, OT services, occupational therapy. Do they offer that at school?
That would be something that you would. There's a whole process that goes through that. You don't have immediate access to it. So if a child has any sorts of additional needs, then this school will try to meet those needs. And if they can't, then there's a process they go through, which would involve bringing specialist provision in if needed, but it is a lengthy process.
Okay.
So it typically, to actually have OT at school, you're talking about at least a 9-month process before that starts.
Okay, no problem. Otherwise, we can obviously go private, and then we'll see how it goes. And sorry, one more question. What about extracurricular activities for children? Do they have that at school, like sports and stuff?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, sports, one thing that people are often impressed with when they come to the UK is the range of stuff that happens in the normal school day. So in the primary schools, they will have 2 sessions of sport a week. They'll be doing some art, they'll be doing some music, they'll probably be having a dibble at some language, probably French, as well as doing the maths, the English, the history, the science. So it's quite a broad curriculum. In terms of after school clubs, extracurricular, the primary schools, well, let's pretend COVID's not happening. So what would normally happen is, as the children gradually get older, the primary schools do tend to offer after school clubs, but normally there's only like 1 or 2 clubs for any particular year group to be able to access. So maybe once or twice a week after school, the child would be going to a club at school. With COVID, it has made it a little bit more complicated. And obviously, because there's lots of potential there for children from different year groups to be going to the same club, and we're trying to keep the year groups separated to reduce infection at the moment. So they might not be running as normal, but they do exist, but they're quite minimal.
We have several questions on here. So let's try to get to them. I think Claudine have a question for a few minutes. If Claudine can go ahead with her question for Debbie.
Hi, Debbie, it's Claudine. I have a 9-year-old son. We lived in the Netherlands for about 3 years. So he was reading, speaking in Dutch. Now we've moved him to English, and he's refusing full-blown to read English. And he's a year behind on the South African homeschooling system, which is the IEB system. What would they do in a situation like that? Okay, so the UK state system works very much on the basis of you keep the children together with their age group, and then you provide the support that they need to flourish. So if he's coming in and he needs support with learning English, with encouraging him to speak English, then support will be put into place for him. If he's behind in his maths or his English, then he would be given support, and that support could be targeted support where he's maybe taken out of the classroom and given one-to-one or in a small group,
or it could be more general support provided inside the classroom. It will vary, but the school will make an assessment of what his needs are and will then endeavour to meet his needs and help him make the progress that he needs to make.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Let's go through Kevin.
Shanti, sorry, can I just interrupt? Sorry, just Candice has asked a question. We're just trying to keep it chronological. She's moving to the UK in January 22. My daughter will be 4 next week. I'm wondering if she will be in nursery or reception.
Oh,
So if she's moving in January 22, she's going to be 4 next week. No, so she's going to be in nursery. So she will be joining reception in September 22.
Right.
So she needs to be aware of the January the 15th deadline.
Right.
okay. Who's?
Sorry, Shanti, I was just trying to keep.
Chandri-san. My daughter was born in August 2014. We are moving over February 2022. In South Africa, she would have been in grade 2, but I assume she will go into year 3 in the UK. How do we cater for any learning that she would have missed with the jump in years?
Okay, so remember I said the numbering's different. So year 3 is the same as grade 2. You tend to find by then that there's not a huge amount of difference anyway between them, and the teachers differentiate in the classroom. So what typically happens in a primary school classroom, in the mornings they'll have an hour of numeracy, maths, they'll have an hour of literacy, English, and the teacher will divide the children in the classroom up into small groups. So they know that when they have maths, they need to go and sit on the square table or the triangle table or the circle table, round table, not circle table, round table. And the teacher knows that the more corners the table has, the shape has, the more advanced the students are, and therefore will be providing them with harder work. And the children that are on the round table, they're the ones that need extra support. So they would be maybe have somebody sitting on that table to help them with it. So it's very much differentiated in the classroom. So if they're coming across and they've got gaps, then they would be, put onto a table that's going to help them to fill those gaps. And then as soon as they're up and running, it's a very fluid situation. So they'll be moved onto the appropriate table for their level.
Okay. Kevin Wallace. My son's date of birth is 11 March 2013.
Okay, so he is in, oh, sorry, my head just stopped. Year 3. Is that right? No, that's not right, is it? March 13, 7, 8. Yeah, year 3, that would be.
And Tareen, daughter is in grade 5 in South Africa, 12 years on 6th of September 12 years, 6 September 2010, and son in grade 8 will be 14 on 13th of December.
Okay, that's a lot of maths involved there. Hang on a second. So September 2010, that child is 11 at the moment.
Right.
So they're in year 6. And then the other one was December. I kind of got lost there because I was having to
December 13, 2007.
I just realized my computer's not plugged in, so the battery's running out. Just bear with me 2 seconds. I just need to find the switch.
Just while Debbie's plugging in, I've put a UK school resources on.
I saw that, yeah, Twinkle.
Just my wife's a teacher, so she does a lot of her lesson plans through that website. So you can see what each school year is learning each year for the state schools. So it's kind of a good resource to refer
Really
to
helpful.
if you're worried about what you're going to be learning in what year.
Yeah. I think it would be helpful too if Debbie maybe put her email address in the chat so people can reach out to her. Because I think these questions wouldn't end tonight. They will probably have more questions. Yeah.
I'll do it now.
Come to join us.
Okay.
Right,
Rachel has a question.
Okay.
What happens if your children turn 13 and 16 in October this year in South Africa? What do you do if they can only get into year 7 and 10? Would they be too old for these year groups if we are moving by December this year?
Okay, so the 16-year-old, if they were 16 in October, then they would be in year 11 in the UK. If you're moving in December, you, in the nicest possible way, you need help, mainly because that GCSE program I talked about, that runs for year 10 to year 11. So from the children's age of 14 turning 15 and 15 turning 16, and they sit national exams in the May of that year. So your child, sorry, I can't remember whether it's a boy or girl, will be coming in December. They are going to come in and they are going to have 3 months of teaching and need to sit exams that everybody else has had 18 months of teaching for. Yeah. So that's going to be a really tricky situation. So you definitely need some help for that. With the one that's 13, they're going to be year 8. So they would be going into year 8 in September, or when you move across in December. Okay, which is fine.
Thank you, Rachel. I can speak to you about this separately because I might have another solution which I can speak to you offline about if you like.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks.
Okay, I think we went through all the questions. I hope we did. If we missed anyone, you can speak directly to Debbie.
There's just one last one from Angelique about religious character.
Oh, that just came in, yeah.
So if a school has a religious ethos, they will prioritise applications from people practising that faith. If they have spaces and there's nobody of that faith applying for them, then they will admit children from any religious background or no religious background. But obviously as a family, you have to be comfortable with that. So if it's a Catholic school, you need to be comfortable with your child joining that Catholic ethos, but you don't have to be a practicing Catholic yourself as long as the space is there.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Debbie, for all the information. It's I think it's been good for myself and Mark as well, because we know the basics on schooling, but it's definitely a tricky subject. So I know you come in very helpful for me when needed with clients. So thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you for inviting me.
I think people should probably also know that they can contact their local borough. It's a good resource for them if they have an idea where they will be moving to. For example, in Reading, or I'm here in Wokingham, the Wokingham Borough Council website is a good resource to go there. It's not simple to navigate, but it could be
that's where you find the admissions booklets and the Find My Nearest and the allocation information. That's all on the council websites. Yeah, but you need to have a good idea of where you're moving to,
right?
Because each council will have slightly different information.
Yeah. And then for those people who are still on, there's also what they call the encatchment area. I think did you touch on the primary to secondary? I know that the secondary schools you have for example, we live near an all-girls school, the Holt here in Wokingham, and there are kids that come in from Reading and different areas into to the Holt, and that's outside of their encatchment, but it's
I mean, each school, whether it's primary or secondary, will have a set of admission criteria, which is how they decide who joins that school. So normally it will be whether you have a child with additional needs, and then it will be whether you have a brother or sister at the school already.
The school, that's right.
And then it will be about whether you live in the area, if they have a defined catchment area, and then it will be how close you live to the school.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on how many people are applying to that school as to how far they can go with the places. So with the Holt School, you know, maybe within Wokingham, there weren't that many people that wanted, say they had 180 places and there's only 160 children, 160 families that want an all-girls teaching in Wokingham who have applied. They've got 20 spaces left and they will offer those to anybody else, whether they're in the catchment area or not. And you're not bound by council areas. You can apply, you can live in Reading Council and apply to schools in Wokingham Council, or you know, however you want to.
Yeah, it's a very complicated process, and I think in South Africa we came from America is on the same time as the UK, August through May, but I think for South Africa and them being on a fiscal year, January through December, bring another challenge with them. So yeah,
I mean, South Africa, Australia, France, Spain, they all use the calendar, so there's always problems.
Could Debbie tell us a bit about the services you provide in relocating regarding education?
Okay, so basically we work with individual families. We talk to you, we find out all of the backgrounds, children's dates of birth, year groups, experiences, what where you're looking to move. We then go away and do some research for you and pull together the performance data, the Ofsted links, put it on a map so you can see it nice and easily, and look at, depending on the age of the child, we might look at the admission criteria, all of those sorts of things in the to help you, and then try to help you identify a couple of areas where you are most likely to be able to get spaces in the schools. We can't guarantee anything, but by looking at how many spaces the schools have got at the moment and how popular they are, we can try to identify areas where you stand a good chance. And then we're working closely with people like Andrew and with Mark, because there's no point us saying to you, here's a fantastic school, and them going, but there's no properties, which is part of the tricky situation that we're in at the moment. So, then we're kind of working alongside whoever's helping you with the home search to try to really narrow that down, and then helping you to navigate the application process so that you know whether you're applying to the council or to the school or a combination of both, and what paperwork you need to submit with that. We also support families who are moving with children at complicated ages, and also if they have if they have additional needs. So if you have a child that has dyslexia or is on the autistic spectrum or is deaf or anything, then again, we're used to working with those families to help them find the right setting for their child. That was a very quick sales pitch.
No, that's fine. Chad, I think we're having a conversation tomorrow, so we can cover this in our conversation as well. But hopefully that was a good answer, Debbie. So informative. Honestly, there's so much to it. Even I've learned so much as well. I've been through the school system as well twice.
I'm sure some people have seen a head behind